The last breath of Earth. Commander Rael Maddox was adjusting the oxygen filters on Lunar Station Gamma when Earth died. He didn't see the flash. The station's observation deck was on maintenance lockdown, and he was 3 levels deep in the mechanical guts of the habitat ring, wrestling with a recalculation subroutine that had been glitching for weeks. The air smelled like burnt copper and recycled sweat. His hands were covered in grease. Then the lights went out. Not flickered. Not dimmed. Out. For 5 seconds, there was only darkness and the sound of his own breathing. Then the emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in sickly red. The klaxon started screaming a moment later. Rael didn't run. He was trained not to. He moved with purpose, boots magnetic locking to the floor as artificial gravity stuttered. He reached the control hub in less than a minute, fingers already dancing across the console before his eyes fully adjusted to the screen. Critical alert, Earth signal lost. Critical alert, all planetary arrays offline. Critical alert, atmosphere breach detected, global. His breath caught. No, he whispered. He pulled up the visual feed. The camera array was still functional, still pointed at the blue marble that had hung in humanity's sky since the first primate looked up and wondered. Except now, it wasn't blue. It was gray. A vast, spreading shadow consumed the surface like ink poured into water. Oceans evaporated into steam. Continents cracked and burned. The atmosphere peeled away in ribbons of fire, and beneath it all, the crust itself seemed to scream, glowing red, then white, then collapsing inward as if the planet were being crushed by an invisible fist. Rael's knees buckled. He caught himself on the edge of the console, staring at the screen as 7 billion lives vanished in silence. The pulse had been perfect. Clean. Surgical. The Galactic Empire didn't make mistakes. 3 days later, Rael was still alive. He wasn't sure why. Lunar Station Gamma was a research outpost, not a military installation. It had no defenses, no weapons, no strategic value. The Empire should have vaporized it as an afterthought. But they hadn't. Either they didn't know it existed, or they didn't care. Rael chose to believe the former. It gave him something to work with. He spent those days in a haze, moving through the station like a ghost. There were 14 other survivors, scientists, engineers, a botanist who hadn't stopped crying since the pulse. They looked to him for answers, for orders, for something. He had nothing to give them. At night, he sat in the observation deck and stared at the ruin of Earth. The planet was still there, technically. A scorched husk, airless and dead, its surface glowing faintly from residual heat. It looked like a coal left too long in the fire. He tried to feel something. Rage. Grief. Despair. All he felt was cold. On the 4th day, the message came. It wasn't human. The encryption was unfamiliar, the signal weak and fragmented, but the translation algorithm recognized it as galactic standard, the lingua franca of the Empire's vast, oppressive reach. Rael almost deleted it. Then he saw the subject line. To any who remain. His hand hovered over the delete key. Then he opened it. The voice that played was young. Female. Human. My name is Nera. I don't know where I am. Somewhere near the Epsilon Reach, I think. There are others here. Not many. 12, maybe 15. We escaped before the pulse. We didn't know what was happening until it was too late. There was a pause. A shaky breath. If anyone is listening, if anyone survived, please respond. We don't have much power left. We don't have much time. The message ended. Rael sat frozen, staring at the screen. Survivors. Not just him. Not just Gamma. Somewhere out there, hidden in the cracks and shadows of the galaxy, humans still lived. And if they lived, they could fight. It took him 6 hours to trace the signal's origin. Another 12 to plot a course. The station's shuttle had enough fuel for a one-way trip, but that didn't matter. There was nothing left here worth staying for. He gathered the survivors in the mess hall. 14 faces, hollow-eyed and broken. There are others, he said. Humans. Alive. I'm going to find them. Silence. Then the botanist spoke, her voice raw. And then what? Rael met her eyes. Then we make them pay. No one argued. No one cheered. They just nodded. Rael launched 2 days later. The shuttle was small, old, and rattling at the seams, but it had one thing going for it: the Empire wasn't looking for humans anymore. As far as they were concerned, the human problem was solved. That was their first mistake. As Rael punched in the coordinates and felt the engines roar to life beneath him, he stared one last time at the dead Earth shrinking in the viewport. "I'll come back," he whispered. "I swear it." The stars swallowed him whole. And somewhere in the void, a girl named Nera waited. The Forsaken Flame ignites. The first meeting of what would become the Forsaken Flame happened in a storage room that smelled like rust and old fear. Rael stood at the front, facing 17 pairs of eyes. Some were defiant. Some were broken. All of them were waiting. "I'm not going to lie to you," he began. "What I'm proposing is suicide. The Empire has fleets that could glass 100 worlds without blinking. They have weapons we can't match, resources we can't compete with, and numbers that make us look like dust." Silence. "But they also think we're dead. And that's our advantage." A woman in the back spoke up. Her name was Senna, a former engineer from the Mars colonies. "Advantage? Commander, we have 3 functioning shuttles, no weapons, and barely enough food to last a month. What exactly are we supposed to fight them with?" "Everything they left behind," Rael said. He pulled up a holographic display from one of Nera's salvaged datapads. A star map flickered to life, dotted with red markers. The Empire didn't just destroy Earth. They'd been expanding for centuries, conquering species, stripping worlds, and moving on. That leaves ruins. Abandoned stations. Derelict ships. Forgotten armories. He pointed to the nearest marker. "This is Station Krell 9. It was a supply depot for an Empire garrison. They abandoned it 15 years ago when the sector went quiet. According to Nera's scans, it's still there. Still powered." Corvin stepped forward, studying the map. "And you think we can just walk in and take what we want?" "Not walk. Sneak. Scavenge. Adapt." Rael met his eyes. "The Empire doesn't care about their trash. But their trash is treasure to us." Nera stood, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "He's right. I've been monitoring Imperial frequencies. They're not looking for us. They're not even talking about Earth anymore. As far as they're concerned, we're a footnote. A closed file." "Then we stay a closed file," Rael said. "We hit their leftovers. We take what we need. We grow stronger in the shadows. And when we're ready, we burn them," Corvin finished. Rael nodded. "We burn them." The raid on Krell 9 was scheduled for 3 days later. Rael spent those days planning, drilling, and preparing the survivors for something none of them had trained for: guerrilla warfare against a galactic superpower. Nera proved invaluable. She had a gift for systems and codes, breaking through encrypted locks like they were made of paper. She reprogrammed their shuttles to mask their energy signatures, making them nearly invisible to Imperial sensors. "Where did you learn this?" Rael asked one night, watching her fingers dance across a datapad. "My dad," she said quietly. "He was a signals officer. Taught me everything before." She trailed off. Rael didn't press. Krell 9 loomed in the viewport like a skeletal hand reaching from the void. The station was massive, a sprawling complex of docking bays, storage modules, and command decks. Most of it was dark, powered down, forgotten. But the core reactor still pulsed faintly, a heartbeat in the silence. Rail piloted the lead shuttle, with Corbin and Nera beside him. 2 more shuttles followed close behind, carrying the rest of the team. Reading no active defense systems, Nera reported. But there's still automated security. Turrets. Drones. We'll need to move fast. Then we move fast, Rail said. They docked in a maintenance bay on the station's underside, slipping through an airlock that hadn't been opened in years. The interior was a graveyard of metal and shadow. Emergency lights flickered sporadically, casting long, distorted shapes across the walls. Rail's team moved in silence, weapons improvised from salvaged tools and mining equipment. They weren't soldiers. But desperation made them dangerous. The armory was 3 levels down. Nera cracked the door in under 2 minutes, her fingers flying across the lock pad. The door hissed open, revealing rows of crates stacked floor to ceiling. Jackpot, Corbin breathed. Inside were pulse rifles, plasma charges, armor plating, and enough ammunition to outfit a small battalion. Most of it was outdated by Empire standards, but to the survivors, it was a fortune. Load everything, Rail ordered. We take what we can carry and come back for the rest. They worked fast, hauling crates through the corridors and back to the shuttles. Sweat dripped despite the cold. Hearts pounded. Every sound echoed like a gunshot. Then the alarm started. The automated defense system woke like a sleeping predator. Turrets descended from the ceiling, their targeting lasers slicing through the dark. Drones poured from hidden compartments, sleek and deadly, their weapons charging with high-pitched whines. Move! Move! Rail shouted. The first drone opened fire. A beam of superheated plasma carved through the air, missing Corbin by inches and melting a hole in the wall. Corbin didn't hesitate. He raised the pulse rifle they'd just scavenged, aimed, and fired. The recoil nearly knocked him over, but the shot hit true. The drone exploded in a shower of sparks. Nice shot. Nera yelled, ducking behind a crate as another drone swooped overhead. Rail grabbed a plasma charge, primed it, and hurled it at a cluster of turrets. The explosion was deafening, shaking the entire corridor and plunging half the section into darkness. Fall back. Everyone to the shuttles. They ran. The station seemed to come alive around them. Doors slammed shut. Emergency bulkheads dropped. The automated voice of the security system droned endlessly, intruders detected. Lethal force authorized. Senna took a hit to the shoulder, a glancing blow that burned through her suit and sent her stumbling. Corbin caught her, half dragging her toward the airlock. Rail covered their retreat, firing controlled bursts at the swarm of drones closing in. His rifle overheated twice. He didn't stop. Nera reached the shuttle first, shouting coordinates and powering up the engines. One by one, the survivors piled in, battered and bleeding but alive. Rail was the last aboard. He slammed the airlock shut just as a plasma bolt struck the outer hull, leaving a glowing scar. Go, he roared. The shuttle lurched away from the station, engines screaming. Behind them, Krell 9's turrets fired in vain, their shots dissipating harmlessly into the void. They didn't speak for the first hour of the return journey. Finally, Corbin broke the silence. We got lucky. Lucky isn't the word I'd use, Senna muttered, clutching her bandaged shoulder. We got what we came for, Rail said. And we proved something. What? Nera asked. Rail looked at each of them in turn. That we can fight. That we can win. Corbin leaned back, a grim smile crossing his face. Then let's do it again. Word spread. Within weeks, 3 more enclaves responded to Nera's signal. Survivors from the outer colonies. Refugees who'd escaped the pulse by sheer chance. A handful of soldiers who'd been stationed light years away when Earth died. They came because they heard a rumor, that somewhere in the dark, humans were fighting back. And when they arrived, they found something they thought they'd lost forever. Hope. Rael stood on the surface of the dead moon, watching the stars. Beside him, Nera looked up. "Do you think we can really do this?" "I don't know," Rael admitted. "But I know we have to try." "Why?" He turned to her. "Because if we don't, then Earth died for nothing. And I won't let that be their legacy." Nera nodded slowly. Then she smiled. "The Forsaken Flame," she said softly. "I like that name." Rael smiled back. The fire had been lit. And the galaxy would burn. Ghosts in the machine. The Empire didn't notice at first. How could they? A missing supply shuttle here. A disrupted patrol route there. Minor inconveniences in the vast machinery of galactic conquest. The reports were filed, investigated half-heartedly, and dismissed as equipment malfunction or pirate activity. No one suspected humans. After all, humans were extinct. 3 months after Krell 9, the Forsaken Flame had grown. What began as 17 survivors huddling in a dead mining colony had swelled to nearly 200. They came from everywhere, research stations that had been overlooked, colony ships that had been too far out to reach when the pulse hit, military outposts on the fringes of explored space. Each brought something valuable. Engineers. Medics. Pilots. A few even brought ships, small, battered, barely functional, but ships nonetheless. Rael stood in what they now called the War Room, a converted storage bay lit by salvaged holoprojectors. The walls were covered in star maps, supply routes, and Imperial patrol schedules painstakingly pieced together by Nera's intelligence network. Corvin leaned against the table, arms crossed. "We're spread thin. 6 enclaves across 4 sectors. If the Empire finds even one of us, they find all of us," Rael finished. "I know. That's why we need to change our strategy. We've been hitting supply depots and abandoned stations," Senna said. She'd recovered from her shoulder wound, though she still favored her left side. "What else can we hit without drawing attention?" Nera looked up from her datapad. "Actually, I might have something." Everyone turned to her. She pulled up a holographic display. A sleek, dart-shaped vessel rotated slowly in the projection, an Imperial frigate, its hull marked with the triangular insignia of the Galactic Fleet. "This is the Valkyr's Edge. Light cruiser. Minimal armament by Imperial standards, but more firepower than everything we have combined. It's currently stationed near the Draxus Belt, running automated cargo escorts." Corvin raised an eyebrow. "You want us to steal an Imperial warship?" "Not steal. Hijack." Nera zoomed in on the ship's specifications. The Edge operates with a skeleton crew, only 12 personnel. Most of the ship's functions are automated. If we can get aboard and take control of the AI core, we could have our first real warship. Silence filled the room. Then Rael spoke. "It's insane." "Yes," Nera said. "It's also brilliant." He stepped closer to the projection, studying the ship. "But we'd need a way in. Imperial security isn't like some abandoned station. They'll have active sensors, encrypted systems, armed guards." Nera smiled. "That's where the ghosts come in." The plan was elegant in its audacity. Imperial ships relied heavily on AI systems, autopilot, targeting, internal security. These systems were networked, constantly communicating with each other and with the central AI core. It made them efficient. It also made them vulnerable. Nera had spent weeks developing what she called ghost protocols, malicious code disguised as routine diagnostic subroutines. Once introduced into an Imperial network, they would spread silently, creating backdoors and disabling security measures without triggering alarms. The key is getting the code into their system, she explained. We can't transmit it remotely, their firewalls are too good. We need physical access. So we board them, Corvin said. Not directly. If we approach in a shuttle, they'll vaporize us before we get within a kilometer. Nera pulled up another schematic, this one of a small, pod-like vessel. This is a repair drone. The Empire uses them for hull maintenance. They're automated, unarmed, and completely ignored by security protocols. Rael saw where she was going. We got a drone, stuff a person inside, and send them to the ship. Exactly. Once aboard, they access a maintenance terminal, upload the ghost protocols, and the ship is ours. And who's crazy enough to climb into a coffin-sized drone and fly toward an Imperial warship? Senna asked. Everyone looked at Nera. She shrugged. I wrote the code. I'm the only one who can implement it if something goes wrong. Absolutely not, Rael said immediately. You're too valuable. If we lose you. If you lose me, someone else will figure it out. That's how humans work. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were steel. I'm going, Commander. Don't waste time arguing. Rael wanted to protest. But he knew that look. He'd seen it in his own mirror. Fine, he said. But you're not going alone. 2 days later, they made their approach. The Draxus Belt was a graveyard of shattered asteroids and ancient mining debris. Perfect cover for a small strike team. 3 shuttles drifted silently among the rocks, their energy signatures masked by Nera's modifications. Rael watched from the command shuttle as the repair drone, now carrying Nera and a compact toolkit, detached and began its slow journey toward the Valkyr's edge. Drone is away, the pilot reported. No response from the target. Good. Maintain position. If anything goes wrong, we pull her out. Corvin stood beside him, tension radiating from every muscle. She's a kid, Rael. She's a survivor, Rael replied. Same as us. They watched the drone drift closer. Inside the drone, Nera fought to control her breathing. The space was barely large enough for her to sit curled into a ball, her knees pressed against her chest. The air was stale and thin. Every vibration from the drone's maneuvering thrusters rattled through her bones. Through a tiny viewport, she could see the Valkyr's edge growing larger. Sleek. Beautiful. Deadly. Her datapad chirped softly. She was within range of the ship's hull. Now came the hard part. The drone latched onto the ship's exterior with a magnetic clamp. Nera felt the jolt through her entire body. She waited, counting seconds, listening for alarms. Nothing. She activated the drone's maintenance arm, using it to pry open an access panel on the ship's hull. Inside was a tangle of wiring and data ports, the ship's nervous system. Nera plugged in her datapad and began typing. On the bridge of the Valkyr's edge, Lieutenant Krev yawned. Another boring patrol. Another day of escorting cargo through empty space. He'd joined the Imperial fleet for glory and conquest, not babysitting supply runs. His console beeped. A minor alert, routine diagnostics running on the maintenance subnet. He dismissed it without looking. The ghost protocol spread like wildfire. Nera watched on her datapad as her code infiltrated system after system. Security cameras looped. Door locks disengaged. Internal sensors reported false positives, creating phantom alerts that sent the skeleton crew running in circles. I'm in, she whispered into her comm. Good, Rael's voice crackled back. Now get to the AI core. We're moving in. The shuttles emerged from the asteroid field like predators from tall grass. By the time the Valkyr's edge realized they were under attack, it was too late. The ship's turrets refused to fire. The engines wouldn't respond to manual override. The crew scrambled for weapons, but the armory doors were sealed shut. Rail's team boarded through the main docking bay, moving fast and efficient. They encountered minimal resistance, 12 confused, panicked Imperial personnel who surrendered almost immediately. Rail didn't kill them. He didn't need to. He simply locked them in the cargo hold and moved on. Nera reached the AI core 10 minutes later. It was a massive chamber, humming with power, filled with crystalline processors that glowed like captured starlight. At its center was the control terminal. She plugged in her datapad and executed the final sequence. The ship's AI stuttered. Flickered. Then went silent. When it rebooted, it no longer served the Empire. It served humanity. Rail found Nera sitting on the floor of the AI chamber, exhausted but grinning. "We did it," she said. He helped her to her feet. "You did it." She insisted. He smiled. "All right. We." They walked to the bridge together. The view screen showed the Draxus belt stretching endlessly before them, stars glittering like promises. Corvin was already at the helm, running diagnostics. "She's ours, Commander. Weapons, shields, engines, all functional. We've got ourselves a warship." Rail stood in the center of the bridge, looking at the faces around him. Survivors. Fighters. Family. "Set course for the rendezvous point," he ordered. "It's time to bring the others home." As the Valkyr's edge powered up and turned toward the stars, Rail felt something he hadn't felt since Earth died. Not hope. Not yet. But the possibility of it.